Okay. All right, we're rolling. We should be rolling now. Thank you for the reminder, Jackie. I appreciate you.
No problem.
Okay, I'm Jiyoung Tabon. Yeah, nice to meet you. I'm associate professor and I'm teaching 616, the on-campus program.
For sure. So if we want to kind of go ahead and get into the meat of the potatoes of today's objectives, is the purpose. Again, the purpose is to cover the purpose and importance of the course, the importance of research and to the agency, kind of go over brief details about the course timeline and the outline and the schedule of assignments and such, and share some helpful tools with folks to help you ensure your success, and also some additional components of some of the assignments that will be expected throughout the course. And so when we think about the purpose of this course, like why is it important, right? So the evaluation of social practice and of health and human service programs is critical. You know, it's vital to the ongoing development of evidence-based informed practice. And so that we're ensuring that we kind of we're doing the work and it's been supported by the research that it's efficient work. This course will give students the opportunity to learn and implement the skills necessary for research and applied evaluation. And this is a skill that students will utilize throughout their career, right? So throughout the practice career, whether that is working direct practice or that's working in a more macro practice space, it's going to be something that's going to be vital to your career and your progression. Students will be taking their actual experiences in field, right, and using the course to do applied evaluation to measure what they're doing in field. Again, so it's just utilizing and measuring, right, the practical work that you're doing in the spaces. When we think of, yes,
Fanika, I'm sorry. I'm happy to monitor the chat and help you guys out. But there's apparently some people maybe that are in the waiting room to be let in. If you want to make me a co-host, I can do that.
For sure.
And then there was a question about whether they were going to have access to the PowerPoint afterwards. So.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Jackie. So I just made you a co-host. So I appreciate that.
Wonderful. I will.
This will be recorded and available for folks. And again, we're still waiting on Rhonda to figure out her technical difficulties here. And so we appreciate your
whenever students write their questions on the chat box, I usually summarize and end of our presentation, we're going to share all the answers together.
And so many of the questions that have come up over the years, right, is kind of what is the agency and field instructor's role? And so we thought it was important to highlight that the agency support and the field places are an important part of the evaluation project selection, right? And so students essentially can't engage in this evaluation project unless they're connected to an agency and actively enrolled in the process of working in that space and gaining the experience. Assisting students with identifying learning contract goals associated with their project. So this is something that most folks have done, right? Have already done and have already identified prior to the spring of 2023 semester, and helping students identify evaluation opportunities. And so when we think about, again, the agency and field instructor's role, it's helping to collaborate with the student to help them be successful in the project evaluation process. So why agency field placement based, right? Again, just to kind of re-emphasize, right? And a lot of these things we're re-emphasizing the partnership, but understanding that agency utilize the information from students' projects, right? And so students or agencies have the opportunity to utilize the information that students are able to collect and the data they're able to share to help them kind of guide their practice or the things that they're engaged in their agency. It also allows students to understand the purpose of the agency, right? So it allows students to get a more detailed understanding of the purpose and the comprehensive intricacies of the agency. And it also fulfills the CSWE components of learning contracts for the students and agency. To add to that, goals that the agency would like to see that can support their mission, vision, and productivity. And so again, it's this partnership, right? Where agency and field instructors are able to collaborate with students to help them better utilize their resources and help supports their mission, vision, and productivity within this space. And so really it's a teamwork, right? It's a benefit from everyone. And this is kind of how we wanted to kind of map that out for folks to get a better understanding, to get a better understanding of what the process looks like and each person and each moving part's role in the process. So when we think about beginning steps in the process, students' first steps in the process, again, are identifying those goals in the learning contract in partnership with their field instructors or their agencies, right, in order to be able to evaluate a project in their learning contract. Students begin to brainstorm their project interest and options, right? And so you're in field placement, you're in spaces where there's a variety of things taking place and a variety of things happening and programming that's being implemented. And so you're able to kind of brainstorm some of the projects and some of the things that you're interested in early on. And at some point, students will propose a project topic, what they hope to evaluate to their site supervisor, right? And again, so there's this collaboration and this meeting of the mind, so to speak, to determine what project is most feasible and to determine what programs can utilize or benefit from the evaluation process. In this space, again, students consult with site supervisors and site supervisors approve the evaluation project. And so when we think about what the evaluation, collaboration, and approval looks like, it may vary, right? It may vary from site to site, depending on what you're wanting to do, depending on if there's already pre-existing data or if there's data that you have to collect from the foundation. And so it may depend on the agency about how that collaboration goes and what you decide to evaluate as far as programming. Again, it's a partnership, right? And most folks at this point, you've already kind of developed and started that partnership and prepared before class has started. And if you haven't done so, that's okay, right? And that's a part of why we're kind of doing this Lunch and Learn project here. But to talk to your field agency supervisor for a potential program that you choose for evaluation project. Again, is the project going to benefit the agency? Are you interested in the program, right? Are you interested in the program that maybe you're choosing or thinking about evaluating? Are there any existing data in your agency and do they allow the data collection? Again, so that's something you want to begin to start discussing right now if you have the opportunity about what that data collection process may or may not look like. Because there are some agencies and spaces that may have limitations or they may have a specific plan on how they want you to gather data. And so that's something important to think about and consider. And so we developed this timeline, right, to really break down, what the semester kind of looks like when we're talking about developing the project and working with the different moving parts. And so to kind of better break this down for folks, I know there's kind of a lot going on in this slide, is, the first part of the timeline of the project is kind of the brainstorming process. And again, I kind of mentioned this already, where you're kind of collaborating with your agency, you're talking to your field site supervisor and getting a feel for topics that you're interested in or programs that you're interested in maybe evaluating. And then at some point, you're going to, some point soon after that, you're going to develop evaluation questions, right? And so the questions that you want to answer, right, or the things that you're hoping to accomplish through that project. At some point, you'll finalize evaluation topics and planning for your methodology, right, and what approach you want to use. And there will also be a variety of consultation sessions throughout the semester. And so before kind of going to the second part of the timeline, I kind of want to make note that the timeline may look different depending on your instructor, right? And depending on whether you're in person taking the course, right? Or if you're online taking the course. And so I think that's important to kind of emphasize that depending on the instructor and kind of what way you're taking this course or what avenue you're taking the course, it will depend on this timeline a bit. And so when we think about the starting evaluation project, the data collection process, again, happens between the week 6 and 7. And so this is like a detailed timeline to give you a kind of a working idea of what the project should look like as far as the moving parts and what will be required and kind of expected of you as it relates to the students in the space. There's also, so just to kind of be clear, there's A's kind of identified on some of these parts. These are actual assignments. And so these are actual assignments that were developed for the course that you'll be completing. Again, that will help you, right, develop and complete your final product, your final report, okay? And so I think that's important to point out too, so that folks understand that, yes, we're doing a lot of different things in this course, and the course kind of starts quickly, but the entire course is developed and set up in a way that really kind of helps you be successful with completing each step in a timely fashion. to get the final product, which is the final report, right, based on your research. Again, course highlights. So as seen in the timeline, students will complete their final report without delays by finishing weekly activities in a specific order. Again, we kind of talked about that in the previous slide. Instructors will follow up students' progress on their projects by checking their weekly assignments. Again, so I think so, for instance, for example, for folks that are already enrolled in online classes, you kind of get the idea of how each week is kind of set up in a module, right? And so with this course, right, you'll have weekly modules, right? And in those weekly modules, there'll be weekly assignments that, again, build on the final report, build on the final project. And it's also similar in the in-person space as well. And so giving you some additional examples of that, what that may look like. Any preparation for the project, again, as seen in the timeline, we want to really emphasize the data collection process. Again, depending on if you're using pre-existing data or you're collecting data kind of from scratch, so to speak, we'll kind of determine when you may or may not want to start. But we typically want folks starting the data collection process around week 6 and should be completed no later than week 13. Again, the semester is 16 weeks. However, if you're not careful, that time can kind of get away from you. And so we want to make sure that your choice of program supports this timeline, but also that you're giving yourself enough time based on the project and what you're evaluating. The literature review, right? The literature review, as well as the data collection process, are really important parts of this project. Again, not saying the other parts aren't important, but these are kind of the additional meat and potatoes of your project. And so when we think about the literature review, it's kind of the most labor-intensive work of your paper. Your reflecting summary of the professional research and literature not only guides your project, but it also helps you decide and kind of decipher and break down some of the things that maybe you want to explore in your actual project once you start the data collection. So you want to look at what has already been done, right? What's maybe still missing, what measures they've used for the specific topic area, and add anything more that may be important for your project. Most important piece of putting your project together and is this part of the project, and is the literature review, excuse me, because again, you want to be able to find the evidence, right, the literature, and review it that supports that what you're doing, right, what you're evaluating is necessary, and it's something that's already kind of been done or supports the need for this program and the project. And it also reflects summary of professional research and literature that guides your project again. But think about some of the tools for success. Now, granted, there are many tools, and again, the way the course is broken down, it allows you to go through each step of the process from week to week. But there's some things that we wanted to point out that we thought were important. So when we think about the logic model, and again, this is just a brief summary, right? A brief breakdown, because again, you're going to get into most of these things in more detail throughout the course. But the logic model is a systematic visual aid, if you will, and a way to present and share your understanding between the relationship of the resources that you have to use for your project, right? The necessary activities for your plan, and changes or results you hope to achieve, right? And so this tools allows you to really break it down and get some detailed information about what you're doing so that things are more clear as you as you move through the process. There will also be group works with peers. And so there's a variety of projects where you're working with peers that have similar projects or working with similar populations to really not only gain a sense of understanding what other folks are doing and learning from each other, but also as a way to kind of build kind of some camaraderie and connection with folks that are kind of engaging in evaluation that's similar to yours. There will also be individual consultations with course instructors, right? And so there are 2 points of contact, at least at this point, where you're actually meeting with the instructor, right? And talking about your project, where you are in the process, where you are in the data collection process as well. And so there's some additional opportunities to collaborate with your instructors. And obviously agency support from your site task supervisor or field instructor, right? Again, we can't do this project. The success of this class and your work in this space really depends on the agency and your ability to kind of partner, collaborate with the folks that you're working with in those field placement spaces. And so they're going to also be a means of support for you as well. And also WVU libraries. And so we wanted to bring this up because I think that oftentimes we're not kind of clear, and we aren't, maybe students aren't aware of what the resources that are available as it relates to their research projects. But the WVU library has a variety of resources where you're able to meet one-on-one with librarians. You're able to kind of schedule sign up for a variety of workshops. They're also able to help you engage in research, right? So when you think about the literature review process and getting that assignment completed, you're able to kind of connect with a librarian specifically, and they can help you find articles and things that support your project. And so I wanted to be clear about that. And then we can also shoot that out with folks when we shoot out the PowerPoint. And just to kind of, before we kind of go any further, I know there may be questions. I think Jackie was kind of monitoring the chat for us, but we also will give you some additional time at the end for questions as well. It's something I was remiss to kind of mention earlier on. And so when we think about the final products include the poster presentation, right? And I'll go into more detail about that, and obviously the paper. And so the poster presentation really, it's like this 5 to 10-minute review of the student's entire semester of research, right? And so it's like your opportunity, right, to highlight the work that you've done throughout the semester. This allows you to share your work again with your field site agency, right, other classmates, and so they can kind of really get a feel for what your project was about and how you were able to kind of go through the process. It also allows folks an opportunity to share more details about their project, right? And so if you're working with agencies and you're working on something specific that the agency is hoping to maybe utilize in the future as far as the data collection and evaluation that you complete, then this will also allow other agencies and or your agency to gather some additional information about what was done to collaborate on potentially future projects. And so again, it's your opportunity to kind of showcase your work. And so this next slide here, is an outline of what that poster presentation looks like. And again, in the course, we'll talk more about this. But we thought maybe it'd be helpful to show you, right? Give you an idea of what that looks like. Very brief, right? But again, gives folks an opportunity, your classmates and agencies, and specifically your field agency, an opportunity to see the work that you've done, right? By this showcase. And of course, the final project, right, or the final product, excuse me, is a completed research project and the paper. And this is, again, something that you're going to be working on all throughout the semester, right? And so there's no, kind of huge paper at the end where you have to kind of put together and rush and do things at last minute. You're working and building on this the whole semester, through each week, through each module, through each assignment. Time management goes, again, the timeline hopefully is something that's super helpful for folks. And again, something that'll be emphasized throughout the class as well, and talking about what that looks like. This course is kind of intense, right? And it starts pretty quickly. And so it's going to be really important to kind of follow the timeline and complete assignments in a timely fashion so that you're able to kind of complete things within that 13 to 16 week time frame. And so something, again, that you could talk about with your agency or site supervisor to maybe help support what that timeline may or may not look like for you based on your project and in the space that you're in. Excuse me. And so when we think about some common questions, we were kind of brainstorming a bit about some of the questions that came up for us last spring semester. And so the idea of, isn't an IRB necessary? No, it's not necessary because you're doing this project in an academic space, right? And so for the purpose of educational opportunities and experiences, there's no IRB necessary. However, if your agency at some point decides that, hey, they want to utilize your data that you collected or your project for some sort of grant proposal or whatnot, then at that point, it would be their responsibility to kind of go through that process. But students specifically don't need to go through that process. We've had questions about, how long or how big does my evaluation research project need to be? That's also variable, right? Depending on, where you're placed, what kind of project you want to engage in. Time and feasibility of the placement and the resources that you have. And so, there's no right or wrong answer per se. It's more about feasibility and how to get to the end goal, right? And so again, there's no right or wrong way. There's no idea of how long or how big it needs to be. It just really depends on what you decide with your site supervisor about what you want to engage in. And also same kind of goes for the types of methods. Do I need to use, and what kind of methods can I use, or do I need to use? That also depends again on your project and what your data you're trying to collect, and what you're wanting to do for your project, and what programs you want to evaluate. And so again, it varies. But again, these are questions that, yeah, you will maybe ask, and talk to about with your site supervisor, that you'll talk with more about with your instructor and things of that nature, to make sure again that you're able to successfully complete your evaluation research and project in a timely fashion, and get the results that you want. Dr. Tabone or Rhonda, did you want to add anything to this slide per se?
Most of all, I would just add trying to think about just talking it over and thinking what's going to work best for your individual situation. And thank you for letting me join.
Okay. And mostly we want you to know that you're not alone, right? Excuse me, not to worry. And so to re-emphasize and validate, right, that this project and this course is totally feasible, we have invited Nikki Miller, which is a recent graduate from our School of Social Work, to kind of share her experience and the process, and maybe to answer any questions that may come up for her as well. And so Nikki, thank you for being here, and go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So if you hear bells or anything, it's I work in a school system. So yeah, you might hear bells and students stomping around. It's Spirit Week too, so it's fun every day. So when I just finished in August, so I had this course in the spring. Rhonda was my instructor, and just kind of thinking back to when I had my first research class, it was not something I was looking forward to at all. I was like, research stats, like I'm not interested in it. It's not for me. But it actually, I'm probably one of the only people to say this within my cohort. Research was probably one of my favorite courses, both classes, just because it gave me a lot of foundation for the evidence-based work that I hope to complete in the future as a social worker. So, this course in particular, doing the research project in correlation with your field experience, it does seem extremely cumbersome. It seems like this massive project when you look at, the assignments that are due, those types of things. But the way that the course is built, it truly does just kind of remove those fears a little bit, because your instructors are truly working with you along those steps. So that definitely helps a lot. And those individual consultations were really beneficial for me. And just, one thing I will say about this program is if I ever needed help, there was someone there to help me. So I could reach out to any instructor and they'd be able to walk me through some things, some concerns, those types of things. So I really just encourage you to, pay attention to how the course is lined out. Pay attention to your timeline. Interact with your instructors. They want to see you succeed. It may seem like it could be difficult, but it doesn't have to be if you just work together. Do you kind of want me to mention anything about like my project, or do you want me to answer some of these questions?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Nikki, just speaking to your experience in your project that you completed.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah, totally. So
yeah, and we'll answer the questions. Yep.
Okay. So I interned with, and I now am employed by, where I completed my field placement for a community mental health agency, and I interned as a school-based therapist, which I'm now doing that work now. So my research project was built around how impactful school-based services were to alleviate school counselors' load when it came to mental and behavioral health of students. So if they were, still at capacity handling those problems, or if school-based services were truly making a difference in providing in that space. So that's what my research project centered on. So I worked to provide that information not only to my facility to show like, yes, we are meeting the needs of students. We are, getting referrals on time. What we're doing is actually working for the school. So yes, they're going to maintain contract with us, as well as I'm presenting information to the school counselors so they can let their administrators know, like, hey, we need to hire somebody else. We do not have time to take care of these kids. We need to have therapists in here more often. So it was kind of twofold. I was able to present information for my agency and if our services were working, as well as, what the school counselors needed help with. And I did that project through a simple survey that ran through SurveyMonkey, as well as individual interviews with our therapists at our facility and school counselors. And then I was just able to compile that information. And it seemed like a lot of work, but by following that timeline, I was able to get it done in a timely manner. I knew exactly what I was working on. And it turned out to be a lot of fun. So we were able to use information to build in for our annual reviews and how we're being scored upon we have a lot of productivity goals we have to meet at our facility. And then the school counselors were actually able to present some of my findings at their conference this year about just their workload and, because the survey also looked at how school counselors are spending their time, whether they're working on administrative needs, mental health needs, which they should not be spending the majority of their time on, but it is where they are. So they were able to present that information too. So it made me happy that it was actually utilized and, because it did take a lot of work.
Thank you, Nikki. Any questions for Nikki before we kind of get into some of the questions that were dropped in the chat? I believe Dr. Tabone had asked for us. Okay. Well, maybe we can jump into some of those questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk about, there is some question first. We will make, I'm sorry. Rwanda, do you want to say something?
No, I just said, okay.
Okay. Yeah, first the question is, as Jackie said, we're going to make this PowerPoint and record the presentation available to the students. And second question is, will we need to present our poster to our classmates and answer questions? Yes, the poster will be available through the Google Docs, so everybody can access to everybody's poster, and they can comment on the each other's poster. And also, if you want, we can invite the field instructor, the field agency, whoever relevant to the program, and then they can see and then they can leave a comment too. And another question is, can you speak more to the group assignment for the course? And then it's a very individual project, this one. So from the beginning to the end, you partner with your agency and instructor, but you have to move forward individual your project. But there is one assignment is a group assignment, which is the nice presentation. So as a group, you present, not only you conduct your own project. So somebody's project like a program evaluation in the what is out there, and then you can present to the classmates. But although there is a group activity, like you discussed about what kind of a measurement you use, what you're going to do, you can have some input or discussion comments with your classmates. But as a group work, you have to present it only one assignment, which is a presentation. And also, could you give
Hey, Dr. Tabone,
Yeah.
do you mind if I jump in here?
Yeah.
Just to add too, because I know in the online space and in-person class space, the assignments can look a little different. And so just to
Okay.
add to the question about what are some of the group assignments. And so in the online space, we do a lot of discussion boards, right? And so with this course, instead of doing a bunch of discussion boards, what it is how we kind of organize folks into small groups, again, based on like your field agency and the population you're working with, and you're kind of engaging in group discussions that way, right? And so for the online space, it's not so much group projects, but more so conversing with folks that have similar research projects or working with similar populations to kind of discuss some of the things that you're kind of experiencing and doing within the coursework. And so, for example, there's a discussion board for the group space to discuss designing your data collection methods, right? So you're talking about methodology, what you plan to use, what you want to use in your group space. Another discussion board is discussing your logic models, right? What that looks like for you. What are some of the things that maybe you had challenges with developing your logic model and things of that sort. And so again, it's kind of like discussion board posts, but it's in group spaces with folks that have similar, again, populations that they're working with or similar projects. So again, you have some additional layer of support within the space. That's all I want to add on that.
Well, and just to, if you don't mind if I add some, it is because the groups looked very different online than in person. And so what we worked to try to build into the online course is that you have a group, and we try to have them really small, just 3 or 4 people. Like with Nikki, she was with probably 2 other people who are working in schools. So that as you're going through the semester, you're facilitating some of that talk that you would just naturally have in class with other students who might be doing school-placed settings. So that's more, I know Roseanne asked that question. That's more of the emphasis of the group's assignment for the online, and you're with that group the entire semester. When you do the poster presentations that Nancy asked about, that is put out for the whole class on like a giant group discussion board, and your field supervisors can come and your agencies can come and look at the posters or share the information and kind of be part of that, applauding you for the work that you did all semester.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think it's mainly, or it is the same thing. Even in person, it's the same thing. Like the other instructor said, it's as a group. You are not alone. Always we discuss together. Like their discussion group is sometimes based on different methods. Like somebody use interview method. They as a group they discuss, so they know how to develop the interview questions. Sometimes they conduct some, online surveys. So we grouped those methods. So you guys are not alone. Not only the instructor, you have, all your, different classmates who do the, similar work or similar settings, school setting, or, community, the community, practice settings, and, a lot of different ways that we can support it together. And also there is some example you guys asked about. So it can be a lot of different ways. A few examples can be if you working with some population, like for example, it is a very short-term inpatient, some psychiatric, some facility, but they stay the 10 days, but they not much doing things, and then they conduct some interview or surveys, and what is their needs, why they staying, is there some other activity rather than some therapy they want to do, and then they can conduct some survey to this thing. Or sometimes if you give the special therapy like a child parent interactive therapy, is it really effective on that one or not? Or there is you work with the hospital setting, but there is people doesn't know what they have to do. It's something, although they see some child abuse, neglect, some, the signs. So do they know about knowledge? There is a mandating reporting. So anything, it can be anything, it can be related to your agency. So it can be one you observed based on your agency, or sometimes when you talk with your agency, the supervisor, they have some idea what they need. So that's why before starting course, if you communicate with your agency and your supervisor and what is important for them, and also what is interesting in you. So when you discuss those topics, it will be the best.
Yes.
I think Al, I'm not sure if did we address Al's question. Could you please give an examples of past projects? I think you spoke to that, but just also I had pulled some things up too, just to give folks an additional kind of feel for what that might look like. So, some folks did an evaluation project on therapy appointments, right? And the notifications and the best way to kind of notify clients about their appointments. Some folks did like mindfulness activities and trying to determine whether they combat burnout among social workers in a certain specific workspace. Some folks kind of did projects related to youth programming and things of that sort. And so there's, again, like Dr. Tabone already mentioned, there's a variety of things you can do.
Yeah, I want to say one thing. I understand everybody is worried about people starting course because it seems like a lot, especially the last semester. And also you have to, from the beginning to the end, you have to complete. It's just overwhelmed. But I want to say, please don't worry. As long as you have something at least what you want to do, and that is all. Because when you come to the class and then we start to not come to class, the online course, the same thing. When you start the course, you just first assignment is just a reflection of what you're doing in your agency, what the agency doing, what potential program you interest. Once we decide what kind of a program you interest, what I want to do, and then that's it. And then rest of them is if it's too big, the instructor will be just narrow down. And if you want to contribute to some gigantic groundbreaking research, we said, well, you can do later, but just for the course, do this one. So we're going to make sure it's feasible to complete this semester and what you can do. So once you have some, that's why we want you talk with agency. If you have something in your mind, we can shape toward what you can complete within the semester. And once you decide the topic, we're going to talk with you guys together what kind of method will be the best to answer your questions. Then you're going to move that one. Then you start your any data collection or existing data, whatever available, and then you just do that. Then you developing your report, and that is basically it. So I don't want you worried too much. Just bring with your passion about what program you want to do, what your agency want to do. Then if you go with us step by step, each assignment is cumulative. Once you finish first assignment, second, third, keep going. At the end, no matter you want or not, you already done your project and you will graduate. So I don't want you worry too much, and then just start to think about what project is you're interested in. I think that should be enough.
And again, of course, that's probably easier said than done, but that's kind of, again, the purpose of why we want to have this talk, right? To kind of get you thinking about that, while also honoring and understanding that, you're still kind of engaging in coursework this semester and things of that sort.
Yeah.
Any other questions, concerns?
Anika, there is another question there in the chat. If they wanted to talk to someone about potential projects for the next semester, who was the best person for them to reach out to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that we're all open to answering and fielding questions. But again, kind of re-emphasizing what we talked about already in the space today is the first point of contact that you'll want to kind of start to brainstorm these projects with is your field instructor, right? Your site supervisors, the folks that you're engaged with in the work and in the field, every day or however many days you're engaged in field placement. And so that's kind of the beginning process and start, because what we wouldn't want you to do is consult with one of us about a project. And then when you finally sit down with your site supervisor and they're like, hey, I don't know if that's feasible, or actually we were thinking something else, right? And so you want to make sure you're engaged in conversation in your spaces, in your field agencies, and that you're on the same page with your field instructors and site supervisors. So hopefully that answered the question clear enough.
Yes, Elizabeth, your question, like the same thing, same as the Phoenicia answered. First, every student need to talk with their field instructor and then see that, what kind of program you involved, and then is there any, program evaluation is done, or are you interested? Is the agency, has some needs for the evaluation? You talk with them. So if you come up with some broad idea, it doesn't need to be specific, and come to the class, the first like 2-3 weeks, you will have some consultation session with the instructor, and you share your idea, and then instructor going to talk a few maybe checklist. The first, that project is, the narrow enough you conduct and finish it within your class time. And second, is a, you are like, for example, data collection is, fit to the timeline. For example, sometimes I want to collect some data for some program, but data collection is only happened April. But April is too late. So because you have a certain data collection time to complete. So, and then you have to change some program, different program. So if you, before class start, if you talk, potential some idea, one or two broad idea of what kind of program is best for you and for your agency, I think that will be the best and first step.
Yes.
The other thing I thought about too, as we're kind of engaged in discussion, is this idea of like human subjects. And so, if you're thinking about maybe that's, you're wanting to use human subjects in your project. I was just also thinking about like Dr. Tabone and Rhonda, that's something also that you want to kind of talk about maybe sooner than later, because sometimes there's extra additional layers or steps within, engaging in that kind of evaluation. And so I kind of wanted to just throw that out there too.
And yeah, if I can add that, sometimes because you're doing applied evaluation, it actually has to be something that you are doing and as part of your field placement and would already be in the learning contract. So it wouldn't be like you would be, I don't know, randomly recruiting people who wanted to relieve stress and doing a mindfulness training. It would have to be something that would naturally be part of the mindfulness training, would have to be something that you're naturally doing in your field placement. And you're evaluating the effectiveness of it. You know what I mean? So there's that's another one of the kind of limits for human subjects. It has to be something that's already part of what you're doing. Like I had one student who was working a lot with safety for families involved in child protective service. And so they were actually giving parenting classes. So then they could survey the parents before and after about the effectiveness of the parenting classes with the scale that they had developed, because that was naturally part of what she was already doing in the field placement. Does that help explain any of that?
I think so. That was helpful. And also, I think Al says yes. There was another question too. It says, Jessica said that her internship is with children, right? Teens under 18. And I know that there are a lot more steps when doing research with children. Would I be allowed to do that? Rhonda and Dr. Tabone, do you want to answer that?
There are more steps, and Dr. Tabone, I would like to see what she has to add too. She's probably done this more as well, but sometimes when I've had people working like with Nikki's assignment, she did a survey for the teachers, because to survey the minors and use the findings in a research thing, she also needed to get permission from the legal guardians. And so sometimes when you're trying to get that many things signed off, it gets a lot more complicated. Or I just saw, just for a second, the chat comes up because so I can't see the whole chat question, but it was like foster care. It would be the same thing. You could do, I had a student working in foster placements, overseeing them. And so she did some data on health issues for the kids coming in, and then how they were treated and the outcome. But as far as she didn't individually interview minors without the permission of their legal guardians.
Yes,
And
you don't go through the IRB, but still, if you have a human interaction, like, you have an interview using the, like your interview at the population, you are actually treated with the, through the therapy, and then you have to use the data, you need their permission. So, because you are every day, your practice or you go internship, most of the programs are part of your internship. So you see them. So you have to say, this is a part of your classroom project. I'm going to do this one. And the one you're doing currently or with your supervisor, I'm going to use this data for the my class project. So you need their permission. Once they commit, you can use it for the class, but it should be de-identified. So it shouldn't have any identification. And then once you get their permission, it can be verbal, written, whatever, and then you can use the data. So it's just when you make a publicly available, like through the presentation or publication, and then you have to go through IRB. Otherwise, you don't need to do, but still you need their permission with their either parents. Sometimes their parents, kids are involved together, and then you need to let them know what you're going to do and what you're going to do and what you using this kind of information for what purpose. So as long as they agree, it is fine. And also there is a lot of foster care, child welfare, system related assignment. If you use the secondary data and then de-identified, that is fine. But if you have a contact personal information interview, still you need to have their permission to consent for the what you guys are doing.
mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions or concerns at all? Any questions or additional concerns, thoughts? Well, we thank you all for being here. I'm going to stop the recording now.